Hey everybody, my name is Kim. I'm a singer, songwriter, and piano bar entertainer. I'm originally from Canada, but I'm now based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And today I'm going to be taking you on a little tour of my living room studio, where I spend pretty much all my time recording and live streaming. Just to give some background, I did take some music technology and film courses when I was in college, and through most of my 20s, I was in bands where we would book out studio time and work with engineers. So I learned a few things along the way that way. Then, about 5 years ago, I started collecting gear for my own home studio. Now, for the past 2 years, I've also been live stream performing from right here on a platform called YouNow. I love it. It's been a lifesaver during the pandemic. So it's all the same gear that I use for live streaming and recording, but it's used in a slightly different way. So the first question I always get is, what microphone do I use? This is the Sterling Audio ST51. It's a large diaphragm condenser, and it was the very first purchase I made when I was starting to get my feet wet with home recording. I chose a large diaphragm condenser because it has many uses. It's great for vocals, it's great for acoustic instruments, and I chose this one because it was very cheap. In fact, it came in a pack that also had the stand and the cable and a little shield to help reduce reflections. Today, I also own a few other microphones, but this is still the one I use most often because I'm very familiar with it. I know exactly how I like to treat it, and because it was cheap. So if I nudge things in my small space and it just kind of falls over, I'm not going to cry. I can just buy another one. Next up, we've got my keyboard. This is the Yamaha Mox 8. I've had this for a really long time too, and I think it's even discontinued now, but it does the trick for me, so I stick with it. I use it as a MIDI controller when I'm recording, so I'll use it for piano sounds, synth sounds, even a lot of brass sounds depending on my sample library. And I also use the onboard sounds quite a bit when I'm live streaming. I'm not like a crazy guitar player, but I do have a Fender acoustic, an Ibanez RG electric, and an Ibanez bass that I'll use for tracking, mostly for demos. For drums, I do have a drum kit in my basement that's always rigged up with microphones, so I'm ready to go if I want to demo something quickly. This unfinished basement is not very well treated. I just have some blankets hanging on the wall to absorb some reflections. And the microphones are really meant for more of a live application, so it works for my needs when I'm demoing or just to hear myself. But for serious recording projects, I'm almost always using program drums. So those are the main instrument sources I use day to day. Next up in our signal flow is the audio interface. So the basic purpose of an audio interface is to take the signal from your sound source and translate it into a format that your computer can understand. My USB interface is the Presonus Audio Box. It has 4 channels, and I basically use all 4 of them all the time. One for my microphone, one for guitar, and 2 for my keyboard because this keyboard outputs in stereo, and if I'm using the onboard sounds, I want the right and the left. I also have a MIDI cable running from my keyboard to the same audio interface. That way I can use my keyboard as a controller for any virtual instruments. Next, the signal from my audio interface runs into my computer and digital audio workstation, or DAW as you'll hear it called. I use a MacBook Pro with Logic, but you don't have to. There are lots of other options if you're a Windows person. And I think when it comes to DAW, just pick one that is in your budget and stick with it for a while because they all have learning curves. And once you use a bunch of them, you'll find that they all perform the same basic functions. It's just a matter of your workflow and what feels best to you. Once the signal gets into Logic, that's my playground for recording and pretty much where I do the whole rest of the process. I primarily use the stock tools inside Logic: EQs, compressors, gates. Even the synths are pretty good if you know how to use them. And that's what I would recommend for most people who are starting out. Before you go and spend a lot of money on premium plugins, get to know the basic tools that are already there for you and really learn how they work, because you can spend so much money and so much time chasing shiny objects. Better to learn the basics. When you're working in a DAW for recording, I think it's really good to separate your recording arrangement creative process from the mixing side of things. So I'll typically have one project set up to tinker and be like, what does this sound like? Oh, I need a shaker part. Or, oh, it'd be nice to add some pads here. I have one project for that kind of thing. And then I have a separate template I use for mixing. I think it's really good to break apart like that because it's better for your PC, it's better for your own mental organization, but also for your creative process. When you have to print your production or export the stems and then import that into your mix template and bounce that out for mastering, each one of those steps is a commitment point. And that's so important when you're doing everything by yourself. You have to maintain your artistic intention and not lose perspective during this process. That's easy to do when you have lots of options, which we all have now because everything's digital. It's too easy to save things and try to keep your options open. At some point you need to commit, and if you do that process, you will finish more projects. To show you around inside the DAW, I'm going to take you into my mix template that I use for live streaming. So here we are inside Logic. I use this template anytime I'm live streaming, and I also use it for work tapes or very quick YouTube videos because it's already set up. I don't need to tweak anything. I can just come in quick and record and go. So here we've got my mixer. Channel 1 is my microphone input. This channel is inputs 3 and 4. That's from my keyboard, the stereo out. Input 2 is what I use for my guitar. I also use it for a bass, but I'm not running bass right now. I have the guitar connected. Over here, I have a reverb bus. So each one of these channels is sending in various amounts to my global reverb. I do this because it saves on processing power and because it creates like one single space for all the instruments. You see my living room and I want it to sound like a living room. And that's really, it comes down to your personal preference of what sound you want to give into your recordings. If I totally mute this reverb, this is the sound. You get dry from my microphone. Well, not dry because the microphone still has all these effects, but this is what it would sound like if I didn't have that global reverb. The piano has a reverb on the sound, but if I'm singing, Monday's just another day, you don't need to sing the blues, it doesn't quite sound, you hear the piano and my voice as being really different when I connect that in. Now I've got the global reverb on. Monday's just another day, you don't need to sing the blues. Get that idea. This is my output channel. I do have a few plugins running right on the output because we're so used to that mastered, loud, high quality audio sound anytime we're seeing a video, whether it's a recording or a live stream. So that's why I have that set up there to take it a little closer towards CD quality audio. You'll notice that this level is down just a bit as like a last resort to save me so nobody gets distortion on the video because you never know what happens live. All right, let's go back to my vocal channel. I'll talk a little bit more about these effects. So the first thing here is a de-esser. A de-esser is a special kind of compressor that focuses on frequencies where my S is happening. If I mute that, I'm not sure if you'll notice a difference if I bypass that versus with it not bypassed. It's just a little bit softer because my S is very sibilant. Even with the de-esser, I could probably go harder on the de-esser if I wanted. Next up, I have EQ. My channel EQ is happening right here. So this is shaping my microphone. If I bypass this, you might not really notice a difference, but I really notice a difference hearing myself all the time. Give myself a little boost here. Probably the biggest thing is this high pass filter that's rolling off these low frequencies. That helps to reduce rumble that's going on in the room because my voice is not happening down here anyway, into this low end. So it makes sense to just roll that off, keep a cleaner sound coming into the microphone. Waves Vocal Rider here is one of my all-time favorite plugins. It's like having a sound person on your fader. So the AI kind of rides my vocal up and down. That way it's a more natural sounding volume attenuation. And the compressor here doesn't have to work as hard. So I'll open up the compressor and show you what I've got on. This is again the stock compressor that's built into Logic. Compression is so key when it comes to vocals. So this is what I've got set on mine. It's so much of it is personal taste and your microphone. So if I were to bypass this, you can hear a huge difference in the sound level that's coming through my microphone. So if I turn this compressor off and also turn off my output compression, this is the true level where my microphone sits without the compression. So I set it into a place where I think is going to be the loudest I'll sing or the loudest I'll perform. So if I'm belting, I don't peak. I'm still underneath that three decibel level here. If I turn my compressor back on and I do that same belting, now you can see the compressor is working. I also have a limiter here to be doubly sure that I'm not going to peak and nobody's ears are going to bleed. All right, my last plugin on this strip is a noise gate, just to reduce some of my background noise in my room. If I have this off and I'm quiet, you'll hear my room. It's mostly just the sound of my computer fan. It's always there when I am talking because it's set at this threshold level, so you do hear the fan noise, but if you only hear it while I'm talking, it's not as noticeable. In fact, it kind of just sounds like some high-end kind of sparkle on my voice. Just to skim through some effects I have on these other channels. On the piano, I have EQ, I have a compressor, always. Everything is EQ, compression, volume. Those are your most important tools. I also have a stereo spread plugin, which just moves your right and your left channel further apart, so it creates like a center space for my vocal. If I turn that off, or let me, and I'm talking kind of like here, you should, if you're wearing headphones or if you have a nice sound system, you'll hear a really full, wide sound. Versus if I turn that off, the piano is more like direct right at you. We almost always hear piano recorded in stereo, so this ends up just sounding more real. All right, so let's look at guitar real quick here. I know this channel strip looks insane. So this is my guitar channel. I have a tuner, as you can see, which is handy when I'm in the middle of a live stream show. I have quite a few compressors on here. It's something to experiment with. It's nice because no one compressor is working too hard. Everyone's doing a little bit of light compression in different ways, and that stops my sound from sounding too smashed or fake, I guess. Then I do have a software pedal board here in case I want to bring on some different effects. Like, I don't know if I would ever want like a fuzzy acoustic guitar sound, but I don't know, anything could happen. I don't really use this with acoustic guitar because this microphone is picking up so much of the guitar direct. That's also why this channel is set so low here. So that's a basic overview of what's going on in here. If I want to record something, I just arm whatever channels for recording. And then I click record, it starts my thing, and it creates my regions in the multi-track space. There we go. Just to show you what it looks like if I am recording. When I'm live streaming, I am not recording at all. I'm just using this as a through mixer. And to do that, I need to show you another little application I use called Loopback. Here we are inside Loopback. Loopback is a great little tool that lets you route audio from any application running on your computer into another. It's as easy as selecting a different microphone. So when I'm streaming, I do everything from this Loopback streaming setup. It's a pretty simple setup as far as things go. I have Logic here and background music if I need it. If I want to add another source, any of these sources here that create noise, I can put them through. Loopback also has an option to monitor, but I prefer to keep the digital monitors off and instead monitor direct from inside Logic. That way there's no latency. When I'm streaming, I just set my microphone input as this virtual input, and it takes everything you see here, runs it direct into my stream in a super lightweight, fast, frictionless way. I also have a more complex loopback I use when I'm teaching students online, and maybe I'll talk about that another day. So there you have it. That's how things work in my living room studio here today as of May 2021. This is a work in progress, just like anything. I think of my studio as an extension of my artistry, and it's going to keep growing and evolving and changing as I'm, scaling my business, but also growing my artistic goals. Looking ahead at things I'm thinking about tweaking or upgrading, most of them have to do with live streaming, since that's such a big part of my business right now. And a big thing that bugs me is this key sound, especially this key. And it's because the condenser microphone is so sensitive, it picks up noise from the key bed, which I love the condenser microphone for my whispers, but I hate it for the key sound. So, thinking about experimenting with some other microphone solutions. And then I'm also thinking about the visual aspect. So, my lighting rig, my camera lens, all that good stuff. It never ends. So, just start. Don't worry about having the perfect setup. Just start and grow as you go. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I've been thinking about doing more tutorial type vlogs like this. So let me know if you liked it, if you found it helpful, and what kind of other stuff you would like to learn from me. Whether it's more craft-based music stuff, songwriting things, let me know. I'll see you real soon.